even though it was a trick question. So I also asked about the dream or hallucination, and here I found that 87% they disagreed to the question that my experience could have been a dream or a hallucination. And opposite, I then asked what I experienced was very different from a dream or hallucination. And here we have practically everybody, 93%, who agreed to that question. So clearly in the experiencer's mind, we're talking about something different. And we have to kind of assume that an experiencer has had a dream, maybe hallucination, and knows the difference. So here again, we see a very strong support that for the experiencer, this is very different. And also the next question here I found very interesting was the strong sense of otherworldliness. This was something I personally have noted, and I think this is a part that we sometimes either underreport, or it's something that people who don't have the experience don't quite understand. Because they will say, well, it's a dream, it's a hallucination, and the experience will say, no, it's different. But why is it different? And I think this is one of the reasons that it is the power, the sensation of the experience is so overwhelming that it's just different. It compares to nothing else. And here we can see that 25% they said that the sensation was 50 to 100 times stronger, and 56% they actually said this was pretty high, 1,000 times stronger or beyond. They actually, some said it's beyond my ability to describe the power of the sensation. And I think it was also 2 years ago, it was Kimberly Sharp. She explained the story of going to Niagara Falls, where she went behind the falls, and she explained the rush, the power of being in millions gallons of water rushing down, and the power of that. She said that's what it's like to be in the light. And I think this is exactly what I tried to demonstrate here through data, that more than 50% they actually say that this powerful sensation of being on the other side, being in the light, is just beyond our imagination. And that's really, for me, a factor that tells us that that's not a dream. A hallucination is not like this. It doesn't have that power, and it doesn't have that sense of reality that we find in the near-death experience that's here reflected through this data. And then this was really the one here that I put the question, the power of my experience, which is beyond anything I've ever experienced on earth, made me absolutely sure that my experience was real. And here, practically everybody, 93% agreed. And that was basically the point I'm trying to describe here, that is really the power of the experience, in my view, is a convincing factor that leaves no room for doubt. Whereas a dream, we wake up and was it real? No, this was a dream. We know, there can be a little bit of hallucination. Maybe there's a little bit of doubt after. But the power here is something different. And it's something that's difficult to explain to somebody else, somebody who's not been in that other world, in that other dimension. And then I had a surprising finding. I asked the question, what would you describe the core or essence of your experience as? And I was probably expecting maybe heaven or at least the light to be the top scorer here. I asked everybody to mark each word that related to the core of their experience. And as we can see here is that the light came in second with 73%. And this is something larger studies, Peter Fenwick with more than 300 cases, he found actually, I think it was 72%. So that kind of seems to correlate. But here the top scorer was God with 80%. And I also tried other words. We had the light of God with a lower score, pure consciousness, the essence of existence, pure being, and then heaven with a lower score of 40%. And just to illustrate this point that we are actually talking about experiences that has something to do with God. Of course, there are different ways of interpreting God, but it really has, I'm very convinced after this and also based on my own experience that the near-death experience has something to do with God. And that's why I believe that we have some parallels here. And I just want to illustrate this through a testimony here. I will just see if we can play. This is Jane, and she gave a really good testimony that explains exactly this point. I'll just let her talk.
But I know that that light is a part of God, or a part of what God emits, because it's a kind of love that can't even be explained. It is so hard to explain what being unconditionally loved is, or what it feels like. but it feels like the safest, most exalted feeling. Well, you see, it's ineffable. You run out of words when you try to explain it. But there's no other source that something like that could come from except some power, and that power is love. Now, I call it God. I could call it George. You know, doesn't matter to me what it's called.